flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. A motion?
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Do you have any public comment? No public comment this evening. Up next, we have an Ag Academy report.
Okay, Madam President, here the new high school folks are gonna dazzle you with what they've been doing in the ag department this year. They've got several student representatives along with them and 3 staff.
Right here. Okay, so we are a few representatives from the Ag Academy. You've seen a few of our faces, but we brought some of our students with us today. In case you have any questions or concerns about what we've been doing that's been new this year, obviously with COVID, lots of things have changed, but we have also made some forward progress, and we'd love to share that with you. Yes, let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Cole Billinger. I'm a senior in the Ag Academy.
I teach Ag now.
Jacob Buddy, I am a sophomore.
I'm Caitlin Simons, I'm a junior.
I'm Cole Wano, and I'm a senior.
I'm Ryan Coffer, I'm an English teacher.
I'm Elizabeth Gunn, I'm a history teacher. Okay. So we have quite a few returning staff members this year. Along with the 3 of us that are here, we also have Adam Williams, who's teaching Ag Chemistry, and Nate Wallenberg, who is teaching government as well as U.S. history. We also have a few, we have Amanda Gillespie, who is in the business department. She is teaching our agribusiness class for us this year. We have Miss Catherine Honeyman, who is our other ag teacher that is new to the district this year. Mr. Ben Reed, who most of you already know, and Miss Diane Mosier, who is our internship coordinator for the CTE department that is very important in the changes that we have had this year. So obviously with COVID, our biggest thing this year was we just have to keep moving forward. We have to put one foot in front of the other. We have to figure out how to make it work for us and our kids and just keep moving forward. So this year, the new things that we've done, we have implemented our internships. For those of you who've been with us for a while, you know that our original goal was to be able to have our seniors be placed in internships where they could take time from their school schedule to then go into the community and be able to experience jobs that they're interested in firsthand. So they would have a little job experience before they left us, but also so they would be able to make connections within the community. So Cole, why don't you tell us about your job shadow?
Well, I was at the B&B Lumber here in town, and going there, it showed me the oh shoot, hold on. It showed me what you needed to do to run a retail store and talk to the customers and all sorts of stuff like that. It also showed me how having fun with your employees also gets you through the day. And when I walk in there now, they just know me by name. They're like, "Hey, Cole, how you doing?" So it was overall a really fun experience, and I hope we can keep this going forward.
So we had students all kind of over the town and the county, really. We had a student, Cole Luhano, who was at Highwater Cattle in Halstead. We had B&B Construction, Midway Motors, J&M Agri-Services, the Kansas Humane Society in Wichita. We also have students at some of our elementary schools that are interested in agri-science and agri-education. We have students that were able to work with Harvey County Farm Bureau, Pest and Machine, as well as we have one student currently placed with the Newton City Attorney. He's learning all sorts of fun things. Also with that, we also have students that wanted to be opportunities that we have at Newton High School, which are wonderful opportunities for our students, and they wanted to be able to make sure that they got that into their schedule. So some of our students were also able to take the certification classes for our welding program through Mike McConnell, EMT, fire science, and CNA, which are also through Hutch Community College. So we've got students that are kind of all over the gamut of things, but they were all able to experience an internship outside of the classroom and outside of the NHS walls. So it was a great thing for us. A lot of that was due to Diane Mosier's amazing ability to basically contact people in the community and say, hey, I got this great kid, do you want to give him a chance? Do you want to be able to, help them kind of get some job experience and kind of move forward? Without Diane Mosier, I don't think that this year would have been as big a success as we have had. And Ben Reed has also been a very huge and important part of that as well. He has supported us kind of every step along the way and been our liaison when we needed it, and it's been wonderful. He's going to do the next one. Okay, so another thing that we had our senior students do was internship portfolios. And also Cole Ducanos. Cole, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our portfolios are really good for post-high school. So if we were using them for, we can use them for a job interview as well. And it really it helps the employer learn more about us as well in the interview. So it kind of gives them a little more background knowledge about who we are and kind of like what we are as a person too.
The sections that they had in there ran the gamut from a traditional resume to what courses they took at NHS, what kind of focus areas they had, all the way to kind of a personal statement about them and everything in between. And students were able to do that along with their internship to be able to kind of look at what kind of skills did I learn from this. And this was a great way for them to document and still be able to take it with them. We also had a few other new classes that came about. Biotech in Agriculture is a new science class that we were able to add to our Ag Pathway. This is a class that I have taught this year, and it fulfills the third science requirement for graduation for students that are in the Ag Academy. We did all kinds of different labs and things this year that covered all kinds of the gamut when it came to this. You can see on the screen there, we actually were able to genetically engineer the bacteria that are growing on the round petri dish to glow. That's standard E. coli, and we made it glow. Then we kind of broke down that bacteria and extracted the glowing protein, which is in the column tube. We also did some DNA analysis where students were able to take foods that they would eat, like Cheetos and Doritos and other foods that they would normally eat, and test to see if they had genetically modified genes in them, which is what we were doing on the bottom. So it was a great way for us to kind of show things in there that students could see at the front edge of where agri-science is going at the moment. We did lots of labs. Caitlin, some of those labs that we did, can you tell us what was your favorite lab?
My favorite lab was probably the DNA testing lab, because we got to see exactly what was in some of the foods we eat.
Yeah, so we started with the actual food. They extracted the DNA, amplified it using PCR technology, which is polymerase chain reaction, which is basically a fancy Xerox copy that makes about a bajillion copies in about 15 minutes. And the students were able to use all of that technology in the classroom setting, even though we were still having remote classes at the time. This was in the fall, and so we were kind of bouncing back and forth between remote and hybrid. But that was all firsthand experience that they got to do. Agribusiness. So we have offered agribusiness at the high school in the past. It has always been a part of our comprehensive ag pathway. However, this year we branched out and we asked our wonderfully qualified colleagues in the business department to kind of help us out a little bit. We were able to then be able to cover financial management, business essentials, and agribusiness standards by taking that class from a semester-long class to a full-year class, which covers all kinds of things from personal and business expenses all the way down to leadership activities and starting their portfolio for the next year. And that was the class that they would have done with Amanda Gillespie. And by the way, that picture is not this year, that was last year, where we went to the P&M Pumpkin Patch and we learned a little bit about agro-tourism and how that can be a viable option in our economy today. Challenges. So the first thing that I want our students to do is kind of identify what do they think they missed out on this year. So Jacob, what do you think you missed out on this year?
So as a first year, I didn't really get a big experience of it before COVID, so I heard a lot of how all the field trips that they went on and all the hands-on things that they got to do. I think that was probably the biggest thing I was looking forward to, and we tried to do as much of that in the classroom as we could, still kind of following the rules, so I think that was probably the biggest one.
Yeah, and so that was, I think, the biggest and hardest thing for us as educators also to kind of have to let go of, because that was something that we spent a lot of time and energy and kind of love into cultivating those relationships and those things where we would go to different community places and learn more about them. But things kind of just didn't work out. What were some of the things that you still enjoyed about Ag Academy?
So I really liked that all the kids that were in your same grade, or whether they were older or younger and just were ahead or behind, you got to stay in the class with them, like the same classroom all the time. So all your classes, like math and science, you had everyone in the same classroom, and it wasn't a big group of people, it was kind of a smaller family.
So by doing that, we still were able to keep kind of the family feel for our students, which was another really important thing for us as educators to be able to keep in there. Some other things that from the rest of our students, which were not here today, that lack of in-person experiences was a big one. Courses scheduling in the same classes in the same hours was really kind of difficult, especially for some of our juniors and seniors, simply because we went to that 4x4 schedule, and so it was really hard to get all of the seniors in the same government class in the same quarter and things of that nature. But we have been able to make that work. Less interaction with peers because of those scheduling conflicts. Sometimes the kids don't get to see their Ag Academy peers as often. Lab times were very difficult with remote and hybrid classes, being able to get all of that experience in. And of course, they love those field trips, or what we call bonding experiences. From an instructor perspective, we also saw lots of difficulties. Just making those initial placements and job shadows were really kind of hard. Our biggest thing that we lost in the fall semester was probably the common shared plan, which was really hard for us. That shared plan is so important in order to keep us connected. It gives us that scheduled set time where we are always meeting, and so we can always kind of talk to each other. And without that time, it's really kind of hard to make those connections.
To piggyback on that just a little bit, sorry, I just kind of popped up. That was really tough for me. Like, I didn't get to meet our sophomores until half the year was over. And so people would be like, how's Ag Academy going? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know my kids yet, because I didn't have them for world history until the second part of the year. So I'm just now kind of getting to know them a little bit better. And then I have a student teacher, which kind of keeps me away a little bit from them as well. And so it's kind of been just tough. But what time I've spent with them so far, like, I'm really enjoying getting to know them. It's just, I wish I would have had the whole year with them.
What would you say would be one of the biggest things that you felt like were struggles for us this year from a teacher's perspective?
I would echo exactly what Liz said.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was in the same boat as I was, so.
Yeah, we teach back-to-back hours, and so it's with our activities, so we didn't have those opportunities until the second half of the year. And I also have a student teacher, so.
We love student teachers, we need to help them get their experience. I miss my people.
So, but they have 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then you get them back, so that's exciting. So, as we kind of went through and kind of tried to work through as many things as we can, another big challenge for us was recruiting for next year. And by the time we got to the point where we were enrolling for the following year, half the students that we normally would be able to reach by going into all of the freshman level science classes, they'd already had their science class. And so it was really hard for us to be able to make sure that we were getting our message out to all of the students in a way that is the most powerful, which is by putting these guys in front of them to kind of say, this is what we do, this is why it's great. So that was a little bit difficult for us this year as well. Yep. So speaking of that, here's our enrollment. So for next year, we have 11 sophomores, 13 juniors, and 6 seniors. We also have 2 new students who are joining the Ag Academy in the junior cohort, and then I told you about getting that kind of scheduling thing kind of figured out. We also had some students that were a part of our Ag Academy who, because of COVID and their family, made the decision to not kind of continue with Newton High School at that time. And so that's something we were very, very sad to see them go. We hope that maybe next year we can get them back and things will be good again. So looking ahead, we have a few things that are kind of on the schedule. So Ms. Gunn here has kind of developed a little draft horse demonstration that we are going to be doing north of the ag shop in the still maintained area that's kind of right north of there. I don't know what to call
There's an
that.
old baseball field that was there for a while, and so we decided we're gonna plow that up. And so we're gonna try to lay some of that groundwork first, and then we're gonna bring in some of the Draft Horse and Mule Association folks that are in the state, and have them come out and bring their equipment and show us how they did it during the Industrial Revolution and before. And so that's kind of, one of the things with draft horses I think is kind of interesting is that you'd think that during the Industrial Revolution, that is when the breed kind of died out, but it's actually the invention of the automobile that we start seeing the decline, because during the Industrial Revolution, they actually needed the horses because they had trains to get the goods, but then how do you get the goods to the specific stores and specific places, and that's where the horses then were started to be bred. So that's kind of some of the fun stuff, but in like world history that I get to get into that I wouldn't normally get into with some of my ordinary general classes. But we get into that a little bit. So I'm hoping to get those guys out here within the next couple of weeks, and if we do it soon enough, we might even be able to plant in there and have something then that we can use over the summer or in the fall.
We also have our end of the year celebration, which this year we're calling the Hullabaloo because we have lots of things to do. Last year, with everything shutting down around spring break, we were not able to kind of do our normal kind of family dinner where we would bring in our incoming sophomores and be able to kind of welcome them to our family and kind of celebrate all the things that we have done this year. So this year we're doing it up big, and we are also looking at celebrating our seniors at the same time. We were able to get it approved through Mr. Smith that our seniors can wear cords, and so we're going to be presenting them with some cords at that time and doing all kinds of great things. We're going to do it in our shop so that we have plenty of room to spread out and things of that nature. We also plan to try and get back to normal, get back to that normal schedule, try and get things back to where we had it before, make those connections again, not only with ourselves as teachers, but with our students as well. Follow up with our grads for next year. Almost all of them have a plan of where they're going to go once they graduate, what they're going to do. Some of them it's military, some of them it's college, some of them it's job, and that's all wonderful, and we're just happy that they have a direction to go in. And of course, lots of graduation parties.
And part of that, we also want to figure out some sort of way that we're constantly following up with the kids, like even after they leave our program, because we feel like that feedback is very valuable into what we can do to maintain and keep going moving forward, helping them out.
So speaking of that, our Ag Academy Hullabaloo is going to be on May 8th in the Ag Shop from 6 to 9. And we will be doing the induction for our sophomores, so both our current sophomores and our freshmen who have decided to join us, and a celebration for seniors. So if you are available and would like to attend, we'd love to have you there. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming, thank you for the students for coming to this meeting. I know this might not be your top place to be on a Monday night, but thank you for coming and speaking to us. It's always nice to hear, and it's nice to have kids back in the room. So, thank you.
Just a comment, amazing things happening back there, you guys are doing great, exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so happy.
Okay, our next item is an executive session.
Move the board to convene an executive session for purposes of issues concerning employee pursuant to the code exception regarding personnel matters of non-elected personnel, and the board return to the meeting in this room at 7:26. President Van Rankin is invited to join the executive session.
Okay, first and second, all those in favor?
7-0.
Who was the second?
I second.